This is Athletes as Educators with former pro basketball player, championship winning coach, and author Angela R. Lewis. Angie Lewis interviews current and former athletes who are passionate about sharing the lessons they've learned and the experiences that have shaped their lives. A resource for parents, a guide for student athletes, a source for current and former athletes, keys to transition off the court. Welcome to the Athletes as Educators podcast with Angela R. Lewis.
Welcome to this episode of Athletes as Educators. I'm your host, Angie Lewis. On the podcast today, we have Donna Orender. Donna played professional basketball, was the president of the WNBA, has worked with ABC Sports. She recently launched Generation W, which is focused on inspiring and connecting women and girls. Donna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Angie, I am so happy that you invited me to join you.
Donna, we talked a little bit prior to starting about the impact that sports has had for so many women. Will you talk about why you started playing sports and how the experiences of playing sports have shaped your life?
Oh, absolutely. I can start at the end and say, wherever I speak, I always can attest to the fact that I am who I am where I am. Specifically because as a young girl, I participated in sports, and my love for playing, right, for competing, for being on a team, actually was something that followed me my whole life. So I would start at the end, and then I would go to the beginning. I remember what I loved about it so much was I loved competing. I loved having this sense of mastery over my body, in a sense, right, to feel physical strength, which translated in some ways into, right, mental and emotional strength. I love the way sports taught you how to connect with others. I mean, I played an individual sport because early on I was a tennis player, quickly converted to become a basketball player because I really loved the ability to connect on a team and feel how other people filled certain roles. And as you can come together and blend, you can be a greater part of each of the sum, however you say that, right? You are, the sum is greater than the individual parts. So, maybe more than you asked for, but kind of that's the way I view the world and my experience in sports.
So I read that you played 6 sports in high school.
I did, actually. I played field hockey. I played field hockey, softball, basketball, volleyball. I ran track, believe it or not, and I also did gymnastics. That's 6. Yeah, that's 6.
That's really amazing and rare, especially these days where kids are encouraged to be more focused in on one sport. How was your experience playing multiple sports, and what's your recommendation for youth now?
It was a phenomenal experience. Like, I loved it. Went from one to another. You had all these different uniforms. And, listen, I don't know an athlete that wouldn't talk about the pride they would take in their uniforms, right? There's just something about the kit, the gear that we all love. And so to be able to have a softball shirt and a basketball shirt, and other than my gymnastic leotard, which I still can't believe I pranced around in, I just loved all the different outfits that we could wear. So, and for today, I will say this. I consult for a variety of companies. One of them happens to be interested in youth sports of today. I have tremendous concerns, and one of them is that how young we start our athletes, and more importantly, how young we specialize our athletes. It means that we have a long history of abuse, really, of overuse of muscles. And we are better athletes, we are stronger humans if we participate in a variety of activities. So that gives us a physiological balance and also cross-training for our muscles. And I have to say that I am not alone in this concern. I'm hoping that there are more and more voices, though, that will really elevate this concern so that at schools, in AAU programs, and youth programs, we're encouraging kids really to participate in more than one sport.
It is becoming truly challenging for athletes to be able to play multiple sports because of the influence and impact of so many coaches or parents who are saying, no, you have to only do this. And so I'm glad that there is this movement toward having kids just play more and learn different types of sports and activities. Because as you said, it's better for their health.
Oh, without doubt.
You mentioned that you love
without a doubt.
Playing multiple sports is healthy, and also sports helps us develop these leadership qualities. What did you learn as a leader from playing sports?
Oh my goodness! Sports is just a phenomenal lens. So what is it? What did it teach me, and what do I see it teaching other kids? Is the first thing, if you start with your own self. Sports teaches you it teaches you what you're made of, in a sense, right? It tests you. It asks you the question of how far do you want to go? It doesn't mean you have to be an elite athlete. It just means that everybody has the potential to push their bodies and their minds that control those bodies to a degree beyond which they even thought they could. And the question is, how much do you have in you? How much push? How much reach? How much desire? How much ambition? And I find that very powerful, and I carry that with me to this day, because there isn't a problem or a task that I don't approach, and I say, wait a second. I remember my hours in the gym when my, I didn't think, very athletic body, right, responded in a way I never thought possible, and it allowed me to achieve things I never thought possible. So therefore, there isn't something I look at today that is daunting anymore, because I know when I ask myself to respond, aside from advancing age, I can do it. And I don't think there's a lesson that's more important than that. I mean, I think it's impacted positively by teamwork and perseverance and gratitude, learning how to win, learning how to lose. But really, when we have people who really know how to achieve and are motivated to do that intrinsically, that's where we get real progress, not only on the athletic fields, but in our boardrooms, in our government convening areas, running our cities, in running our not-for-profits. It's very powerful.
That is. That's extremely powerful. And I wonder sometimes, as athletes, how do athletes best transfer that into the other parts of their lives, especially if you've been playing for a while, you've played professionally, or maybe you've been playing college sports, and now you step into a new industry, a new field, and there's this lack of competence in some cases. What's your advice for athletes in transition who are maybe leaving the athletic field or court and now entering in a new space?
It's a great question, because I have done a lot of work in this space as well. And I really, when I ran the WNBA, I really was very proactive working with our team, our athletes, in trying to put them in positions that would allow them to see the world beyond their basketball, so they can begin to contemplate what that world looked like. And it's really interesting. I don't know what your experience there, Angie, is, but when you're a committed athlete in the height of your profession, you don't want to see any other part of the world, right? You're like, I am here now. I don't want to think about that. And I found that happened more often than I would like to see, because I think especially in the professional sports world, you have a platform that allows you to see the world that others probably couldn't, and you should take advantage of it. So my advice usually to athletes is to get out there and experiment. Like, you may not know exactly what you want, but a very important part of the process is being able to identify what you don't want.
Right.
And therefore you can start to winnow down where your interests, talents, right, and where you might want to spend your time lies.
Agreed. I was the athlete. I didn't know. Once I finished playing, I didn't know. So I went to grad school and then just started working in education because I like youth after coaching. And so through this podcast, I've interviewed a number of athletes, and so many of them have that disappointment of being finished and not knowing what to do. But I love the fact that you encourage them to experiment, because that makes a tremendous difference through their life experiences.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. And you've lived that too, so you know firsthand. Look at the amazing things that you were doing, taking all of your athletic learning and experiences, and now putting them forth with your not-for-profit, your education intention. All that stuff is fantastic.
One thing, as you mentioned, that we talk about with athletes is having this extraordinary platform to have influence over others. What are some ways that you see athletes being able to best utilize that platform to be leaders in their communities?
I'm sorry. You want to just say that one more time? Sorry, I want to make sure I heard it correctly.
What are some ways that you've seen athletes utilize the platform of this athletic identity to be influencers, positive influencers in their communities, since athletics gives us that platform and influence?
Well, I mean, I think there's so many athletes that have done an incredible job of using their platform, whether it's to speak out on the LGBT community and putting a spotlight on the rights issues around that. I think has been incredible. I look at an athlete such as the wonderful center who plays for the Liberty, who played at played at the University of Connecticut, who has really dedicated her whole experience and I think half her salary, Tina Charles, to defibrillators. I mean, there's so many. Tamika Catchings in the WNBA, who has Catch a Star, which is about mentoring young girls. And you can look across every sport and find athletes who understand that they have something to pay forward by virtue of the platform they have developed through sports. And it doesn't have to be elite athletes either. You know, in every community there are people who have played on the sports team who people remember, which gives them, again, an elevated platform to utilize to create influence. I think it's really interesting. I always like to talk about the story whereby we would travel around and we could be with one of the greatest cancer researchers in the world, and they would give the most compelling talk about the state of research. And you're wowed, you're awed, and you think, what am I doing with my life? But you're there with that person, and then you say, well, I played professional basketball, and then the kids or the people, they want to talk to you. And you realize that combination of accessibility that sports provides, right, that respect, that wanting to connect, and if you can then partner with these people in the healthcare industry, in this particular case, to convey that message, then you're able to do something really special.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's so interesting because athletics has such a strong impact over our society and community that instantly there's this connection, because everyone can kind of identify with being an athlete regardless if you played in high school or college or not, because typically people grow up playing sports, and so there's this connectedness that we have through sport that is rare in other professions and industries.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree with you 100%. 100%.
You mentioned the WNBA, and obviously we're on the 20th anniversary of the WNBA. What is your vision?
Isn't that cool?
It is so cool. I remember being in high school and the WNBA starting, and so it inspired a lot of young women. Can you talk about the impact of the WNBA over the past 20 years?
Wow.
I know, that's such a broad question.
That's a big, broad question. Let me see if I can distill it to just a couple of points.
Okay.
The first thing is when the league launched, it was tremendous amount of excitement, right? What it said, what it represented, and people just really gathered, and there was huge amounts of attendance and press, and it was great. And it fell off the cliff pretty quick for a variety of reasons. But it really put the world on notification that, in a sense, women can excel, and there is a place for them to have a professional league where everyone could be a fan. Now, the fact that it didn't immediately, right, establish a business level equal to the NBA or the NFL gave a lot of naysayers something to point at. But, you know, it also gave a lot of people who had hope and passion to continue to rally. I felt that having a place where strong women can gather and could be applauded really spoke to the burgeoning, if you will. Even though it's been going on a long time, it was still part of keeping all the embers alive for a movement that talked about the positivity of the strength of women. And as you know now, I feel like we are in a pivotal time, right? There's so much more focus on women's leadership, the value of leadership, the metrics that women bring to companies and corporate organizations, to boardrooms, to C-suites, all of that great stuff. But I think the WNBA is part of that voice. It's part of the heartbeat, because what we do at the WNBA is we feature women who are elite in terms of physicality, but also in terms of their commitment and strength to being the best. And I think that's powerful. I think that's where the WNBA sits. We also can't ignore the fact that by having the WNBA, it took women's basketball up many, many, many notches. So, when Miles Brand was alive, God rest his soul, he made women's basketball the jewel in collegiate sports because now there was a place for women to go to the next level. And I think women's basketball and women as a sport has grown exponentially because of that.
What do you think that it takes for people to continue to support and invest in women's sports, particularly the WNBA and women's basketball?
I just think it takes conscious awareness and it takes an intention, right? Right?
Absolutely.
We need as individuals to say, wait, my daughter is as important as my son. And so therefore all of the benefits that he gets, the wind that beneath his wings, is the kind of support that we need to give to young girls and women as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an automatic. We have to all think about it because we all unconsciously behave and buy into the status quo, which is very much tilted in to the benefit of our young boys. And I raise sons, and I want them to have every benefit. But on the other hand, they were there first. And so we're playing catch-up. And so we should be conscious about playing catch-up and providing those same kind of benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of women and bringing women together to support women, I want to talk about Generation W. And this year was the fifth year anniversary, the fifth year of the, of the event. You had an event in April, and it was the 5th year, correct?
Yes.
What have been some successes, some key successes over the past 5 years with Generation W?
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, so it's a national event. We have between 40 and 50 plus phenomenal speakers and presenters that gather around the theme. And really, it's all about elevating the voices of women and beyond. Now it's really about building community, but giving women the chance to be educated, inspired, and connected. And I have to tell you that not only has our outward ability to influence has increased, but the difference is it also gives us a chance to dig deep in communities and make really substantive changes. And so just 4 weeks ago, one of the major headline from our newspaper, from the editorial board, spoke for the need and the benefits of having women's leadership in a city. And I have to tell you that, when we started this, did I ever think that would happen? I wasn't sure, but I certainly hoped it was. Because once we talk about women's leadership, then we're talking about really very important substantive changes to the fabric and the culture of a community. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes to access talent across the board. And it also speaks to the dignity of all people. Because when women lead the way, actually, others notice. Men do follow. It's an interesting dynamic. And I think it's very important in terms of elevating our civility, if you will.
You mentioned women's leadership and things are different when women are at the helm. What are some ways in which women lead differently?
There's been a lot of talk about that. They do, there was a McKinsey study that talked about the 5 core valued leadership traits. And you're going to ask me what they are, and I just did a research study that has them. Let me see if I can find out what they are. And of those traits, interestingly enough, the research also showed that women excelled at 4 of them, of the 5, interestingly enough. So we think about the things about empathy, where women tend to score higher. It's a style of leadership, right? We're no longer in the command and control mode. We're more about collaborative teamwork, empathic abilities that draw the best out of people, those kind of things. And that's not to say that men can't do that as well, but they came up through probably a different path of leadership. Women more naturally bring another side of leadership, and it's really bringing those things together that makes for, a stronger dynamic. So I think probably one of the best things that are coming out of this, I think women have been taught, especially those who come through leadership in a time when there were so few of us, to kind of put aside the unique things that made us women. And we're now understanding it's exactly those things that make us collectively stronger and more effective.
Oh, you're absolutely right, because I remember hearing that you're told gender doesn't matter, right? You being a woman doesn't matter. Just go in, work hard, and do the same things, but you'll be able to lead effectively. And so I hadn't thought of it in that way, that the things that make us unique to women are the things that make us quality leaders that can help us in our leadership.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What
do you think?
Oh,
I'm just curious of your opinion.
Sure. I agree 110% that I didn't think about the things that I do naturally, that come naturally, whether it be being collaborative and listening and being very open to people. Those are the things that when I'm working with our nonprofit and having to deal with our board and building community partners to help our students, those things are essential, absolutely essential to being effective.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely.
There's organizations like the Women Athlete Business Network that Ernst & Young supports and sponsors, that it's really eager to help more women become leaders as well. I know that Generation W is this collaborative space. What other organizations out there are doing the same types of work that are collaborating on this level?
I mean, I can tell you there's so many, but at this point in time, I'm pushed to kind of think off the top of my head what they are. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of activity because I get lots of calls and lots of emails, but I can't at this point in time give you a list. I apologize.
Oh, no, not a problem. I didn't know if there were specific partners with Generation W that help make Generation W even more robust.
Oh, for us?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just meant in general because you said E&Y. I mean, for us, we have phenomenal partners. I mean, we have companies like Southeast Grocers, which is Winn-Dixie, which has been amazing. They've been with us since the beginning. They challenge us in our thinking. We go to their company and we meet with their women's leadership teams to discuss what's going on and how we should be able to grow this, what's of interest to them in terms of speakers and topics. It's just for them. We have Florida Blue and Wells Fargo. We have Hampton Golf. So we actually partner with sports companies here in our area that are helpful. We have our hospital, Baptist Hospital, and we just have all sorts of different kinds of companies coming together, and the leadership from those companies coming together to be able to discuss what puts us ahead, which we love. KPMG is a huge partner and a great thought partner in terms of innovation and connecting us with the outside world and big ideas. So we love that.
It is great to hear so many people involved and so many companies on board supporting Generation W. What's your vision for the future? So if we were to look 5 years from now, what would you like to see happen?
You know, it's a great question. We have been consistently asked to expand our footprint in terms of the events that we do run. Our Jacksonville-based event is our national event. And I got a call from San Diego and a couple other markets, would you expand? You know, we also have a teen girl event called Generation WOW, where we take our women from Generation W who volunteer, and we have a mentorship program that's all about the positive and the possible for our high school girls. And, you know, we've been asked to do that in Boston and so I think in 5 years, I can see us being physically in more places. I think our digital presence will continue to grow. I feel like our overall impact in terms of being national but with strong local roots is a model that will be replicated, because at the end of the day, we really do believe that all change and all politics are local. So while you can have a big national umbrella and you can take knowledge down, you really do need to build networks that work together to make change in your own backyard. And so the research that we've currently taken on, which is called Broad Influence, which is measuring the presence of women's leadership in particular, with a focus on not only all women, but calling out in particular women of color as well, is something we do hope will grow nationally, so that in all of our backyards, we can all be aware and accountable of what real, true, diverse leadership looks like.
That's extraordinary, and I'm really excited that we could talk today and hear about the vision of Generation W, that we could talk more about people being intentional about supporting female athletes, and that the young women are getting the same types of opportunities as young men. Donna, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to speak with me and to be on the podcast. If people wanted to learn more about Generation W or you, how could they reach you?
Sure, absolutely. And we'd love that. Info at GENWNow.com is probably the best way to get to us, because that goes directly to our team and they'll pick it up. So I'd love to be able to hear from as many people. On Twitter, at Donna Orender. People ask what's your social media of choice. That would be it for me. And Auntie, I hope we can stay in touch. And if there's any way that we at Generation W, of course, can support you or me personally, by all means. We're just big fans now that we know more about your work. And I personally love the way your network worked on your behalf. I think that says about you and your friends and your colleagues. So well done.
Thank you.
This is Athletes as Educators.
Thank you for listening to the Athletes as Educators podcast. Connect with me through the Athletes as Educators Facebook page or at Athletes Educate on Instagram. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and go over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. For more resources and information about today's podcast, you can check us out at AngelaRLewis.com.